Hey everyone! Today, I want to take you through the process of creating my figurative sculptures. This is the first, and so far, only sculpture series I made. It's called QUAI THAI, which translates to abandoned, messed up looking babies or outcasts in Vietnamese. This series was my first ever attempt at sculpting, and looking back, I think it turned out pretty well. Since I didn't document the entire process in detail, I only have proper footage of the finished sculptures, but I'll do my best to present everything in a compelling and coherent way so you can follow along on my baby's journey. I started by creating armature wires and covering them with gouache and flour to build the inner structure and save on clay. Since this was my first time sculpting, I was learning and experimenting as I went. After finishing the base structure of the first sculpture, I moved on to the second and third. As I began layering clay onto the first pieces, I started the fourth and fifth. There are 5 sculptures in total, and I worked on them in rotation. This allowed the first layers of clay to dry while I assessed, adjusted, and added new layers. I made countless adjustments, constantly tweaking their poses until they felt right. Fortunately, the clay was water activated, so whenever I needed to reposition parts, I could simply re-wet the dry clay and blend in new layers. Even after painting them, I ended up breaking some apart and reposing them. Something I don't recommend, but it was part of my personal process of self-discovery. As I neared completion, I thinned down my clay with water and applied smoother, finer finishing layers. I also experimented with different textures, using a toothbrush to brush the surface and a paintbrush to apply gel-like, diluted layers of clay. Once the sculptures were fully sculpted, I removed them from the tripods and began painting them with oil paints. First, I primed them with a thin layer of gesso. However, I quickly realized that improper priming led to inconsistent results. Some areas dried too fast, turned powdery and matte, while others, with too much gesso, ended up looking overly glossy. These were valuable lessons I took note of for future projects. At this point, I faced another challenge: how to display them. My lack of experience meant I hadn't planned this ahead. Originally, I envisioned them hanging from a structure, which is why I started them on tripods. But I soon found that idea too impractical. Instead, I bought various pieces of glassware to hold them. One sculpture sits inside a giant vase. Another rests on top of a large glass cup, and so on. I ended up loving this solution. It reminded me of preserved fetuses in jars I once saw during an anatomy study field trip to a medical university. I deeply resonate with these outcast creatures. They make me wonder, if they were given a chance to live and grow in a magical world, would they turn out as colorful and strange as my sculptures? All of these figures are intentionally gender ambiguous, a reflection of my own queer identity. In many ways, these colorful babies are mini versions of myself. How I imagine myself as a baby. They bring me so much joy. Sometimes, I forget I made them and just enjoy their curiosity and naivety. To take it even further, I made dresses for some of them and even sewed matching outfits for myself. These sculptures later became the central characters in my visual storytelling art book, Bright Water, which encapsulates my off-the-canvas 3D artworks, including textile art, sculpture, and ceramics. I'm incredibly proud of this series. Both QUAI THAI, meaning freak fetus, and bright water, which translates to my name, Hamming, deeply connect with my identity as a queer trans artist. Through this series, I want to gently remind young artists who are just starting out to always be authentic in their art practice. Make art for yourself first. Any audience that appreciates it, it's just a cherry on top.